Time. Relentless, ever-present, unending, marching steadily towards infinity. The International System of Units defines time's most basic unit as a second. The duration of 9,192,631,770 vibrations needed for cesium-133 to shift energy states. However, for the person, time is measured in hours, calendars, alarm clocks, birthdays, schedules, appointments. For the collective, time is measured in seasons, weeks, work days, monthly targets, quarterly policies, annual turnovers. For the city, time is measured in populational influx, weather patterns, census results, governance terms, real estate development, and urban planning. And so, time ticks steadily, slowing down and speeding up subjectively, incessantly accruing interest, counting up and counting down. Time becomes that invisible force dignifying the past, reaffirming the present, and prophesying the future. But what of a world where cities can no longer afford to run for everyone all the time? Gathered for the spring equinox, the city moves as a solemn reminder of the before times, circumambulating the holy center, expressing gratitude to the gusts of cool air emerging from the earth's womb, indebted to nature's remaining resources. They encircle in prayer, hoping that one day they might escape the hubris of their past. 2059, the beginning of the end. The world witnessed the hottest summer it had faced for the last 125,000 years, since the last interglacial period. Cataclysmic heat waves lead to the death of millions, with winds slowing, oceans rising, and energy networks collapsing. Major panic rippled across the world, and the people turned to shade, not light, as the element that would ensure their survival. Compounding heat ran streams and underwater reservoirs dry. Severe droughts raged the planet, and wars were fought. So water became one of the most precious commodities. Now every drop is recycled. As the heat increased, plants withered away. Droughts led to famines, and dependency on natural cycles was simply no longer feasible on a global scale. Food became curtailed, with diets strictly curated and controlled to ensure minimum wastage. Heat rose to such unbearable extremes throughout the day, rendering daily activities during the afternoon time impossible, causing shifts in workday schedules. Alas, time bore the toll of such unmitigated heat, forever reorganizing the rhythms of everyday living, rewriting the fabric of the city physically, culturally, socially, and temporally.
That is when the system of chrono wheels emerges. Inspired by the mechanics of Ferris wheels, the system allows housing to move through different environmental conditions throughout the day. Residents experience shifting views, cooler breezes, and access to different buildings periodically. It comprises of multiple chrono cells, rotating modular housing units mounted on mechanical rails that attach to existing structures. They provide shade to the ground below while creating new circulation routes. But this comes at a cost. Buying or renting a home that sits on the rooftop level in cooler nights but retreats close to the ground during peak heat becomes expensive. Social hierarchies in ownership of real estate are now read by where it situates itself throughout the day. This system of dynamic architecture augments existing daily schedules. The city is divided into 4 major bands. The first band is protected mornings, followed by peak heat afternoons, temperate evenings, and finally deep nights, which contain the city's most valuable hours. Within these time bands, work and activity shift into staggered 4 to 6 hour bands with 1 hour buffers in between that distribute movement across 24 hours. These schedules determine when they will work, eat, rest, or socialize, with each hour of the day accounted for. Violating these schedules can result in penalties, because unplanned activity disrupts carefully balanced energy networks. It is not the heat that governs these bands. It is not the carbon they measure, nor the water they ration, nor the shade they seek. What truly shapes the city is something that's so built into the rhythm of life itself that it is no longer distinguishable. It is time. Time withholds and releases, not through force, but through rhythm. And in learning to follow it without question, they have come to accept this rigidity as natural. Their movement, their hunger, their sleep, their anger, all of it is scheduled. But how does scheduling translate into housing? Instead of renting entire apartments, individuals began to rent access to a space during specific time bands. Access is controlled through personal watches that unlock spaces only during assigned periods. One occupant may use a room during peak heat hours, while another accesses the same room later in the day. To go out in the harsh climate and save water, a scarce resource, special clothing must be worn at all times. A base layer of water absorption nodes collects up to 98% of bodily moisture for later exchange, while a lightweight mycelium layer insulates, and special reflective cloaks protect against extreme temperatures. As they exit, beds, storage units, and furniture automatically fold away, allowing for rapid transitions between occupants. If a room remains empty during a time band, its power supply automatically shuts down to conserve energy. This system maximizes housing efficiency while reinforcing the central role of time in organizing urban life. As they move outdoors, citizens wear AR contact lenses. AR projects digital information directly onto their field of vision. These lenses are color-coded to help identify members of a particular time band schedule. AR functions primarily as a navigation aid, calculating routes based on shortest distance, fastest time, shaded paths, or lowest crowd density. These can be accessed through subscription, unlocking a layer of the physical world through a digital interface. Citizens also rely on AR to track their carbon allowance and consumption. Over time, the system has become a powerful commercial platform. Companies display personalized advertisements through AR interfaces, while entertainment evolves in the form of bioprojections and immersive video game experiences. Augmented reality experiences transform familiar spaces into constantly changing environments. Using AR-enabled navigation systems, citizens can move toward the nearest Aquasol unit distributed across the city as accessible water exchange points. Aquasol is a water recycling unit where bodily moisture collected through absorption suits is exchanged for an equivalent volume of purified drinking water in a closed-loop process that minimizes loss. While Aquasol ensures hydration, Nutrisol provides nutrition and includes both total and partial parental nutrition, TPN and PPN, a form of synthetic nutrition that most of the population subsists on. It delivers essential nutrients directly into the bloodstream through IV systems, bypassing digestion entirely. The government provides basic TPN to all citizens at a meager cost, as it is extremely carbon efficient. However, most citizens supplement intravenous feeding with consuming 3D printed meals made from processed food waste. Growing mushrooms outdoors becomes nearly impossible due to extreme heat and pollution. Food production therefore shifts into controlled indoor environments with minimum contact with light, and fungi provide most necessary nutrition in what is considered a natural form. However, other forms of food grown on plants and trees become extremely carbon intensive and by extension, expensive. Vertical farms, hydroponic systems, and artificial blue and red lighting are needed to allow genetically modified crops to grow without direct sunlight. Maintaining these farms requires advanced scientific knowledge and expensive infrastructure. Eating meat is almost unimaginable due to its immense carbon cost and is seen as an environmentally damaging indulgence. In this way, food becomes a clear marker of hierarchy based entirely on how much carbon is being emitted and for what processes. An international network of cities called the Carbon Confederate comes together to act as a regulating body to reduce carbon emissions. As national boundaries weaken, metropolitan regions begin operating almost as independent entities. Cities compete within this system, communicating through satellite networks, and are ranked according to how much carbon they emit and how much they successfully capture. These rankings determine the distribution of carbon credits, which function as the central currency of this world. Environmental performance becomes both economic strategy and political power. Cities that offset more emissions receive greater allowance the following year. At a city level, carbon credits are distributed equally in the form of a universal basic income. This, however, doesn't suffice to maintain aspirational living standards, and carbon debt pushes this gap even more. Citizens work to increase their carbon allowance with government jobs such as maintenance. Working through the deserted peak heat and temperate evening time bands, these workers experience the harshest conditions. However, there are others who take advantage of this emptiness too. Daytime also creates moments of opportunity for resistance groups to gather outdoors. Surveillance systems malfunction in the heat, and for a while, no one is watching them. To combat this, an elevated network of rooftop corridors connecting different buildings has police patrollers on constant standby. They gain quick access to different sections of buildings, responding to emergency signals from citizens and apprehending criminals. Enforcement is organized sector by sector, with police units stationed locally across the city. They also have exclusive access to the few functioning elevators which are positioned at regular intervals throughout the city. These elevators take them to an underground network of 24/7 circulation pathways that allow rapid movement between sectors. Access is strictly controlled, and only officials, select elites, and emergency personnel in the form of firefighters, law enforcers, and medical first responders are given special permits. Extreme temperatures during peak heat make conditions like rhabdomyolysis, heat syncope, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke prevalent, resulting in increased thoroughfare through these corridors for medical emergencies. At lower levels, there are also hidden restaurants tucked out of sight, serving real meat to wealthy patrons willing to spend vast amounts of carbon credits on what is considered a wasteful indulgence. Interspersed between these corridors are earth tunnels. They draw in warm air from outside the city, which cools as it passes underground before being released at ground level. This helps reduce temperatures elevated by urban heat island effect in the densely packed city. Apprehended criminals are taken into custody. There are a range of punishments meted out that reflect the city's carbon and time-based economy. Those that have committed serious crimes are incarcerated in glass prison cells at the very top of the city. They are exposed to daytime heat, intensified by the insulative properties of glass. Minor violations result in reduced carbon allowances, downgraded AR navigation systems, or work during peak heat. In some cases, capital punishment is justified as a method of reducing overall emissions, and the offender's life is measured in terms of how much environmental damage they generate. Crimes are varied, but as long as it breaks the city's rhythm and damages the carefully cultivated carbon capture industry, it is a crime. Cutting, damaging, and exploiting trees in any way is a crime. Hacking AI systems and altering watch mechanisms to override access is a crime. Using the underground networks as a non-emergency personnel is a crime. Circulating banned machines, drugs, and high-emission technologies is a crime. Switching activities between time bands and being outdoors during peak heat is a crime. While strict adherence to schedules is enforced on one group, complete flexibility of work and movement is afforded to another. Microbiologists, climate engineers, AR designers, urban planners, chefs, and botanists are among the most respected professionals in this world. Owing to their lucrative stature, they are given the freedom to choose their working time bands. Deep night brings the city back to life. As temperatures fall, the air softens. Rooftops that were silent and unusable by day transform into bustling social landscapes. Markets glow, festivals unfold, and gatherings emerge in the cool open air. For a few fleeting hours, the city breathes. Those who can afford it spend precious carbon credits to indulge in freshly cooked food. But not everyone has this luxury. Deep night is also when the city works. As the air cools, machinery comes alive. Nutrisol factories produce IV bags, photovoltaic cloth is mass manufactured, and water beyond recycled supply is desalinated and packaged. Solar cookers are assembled for those who can afford real vegetables, while polished mirror systems with rotating mechanisms are fabricated to channel light into spaces that don't have it. At the very base of the city, upholding the ideals of carbon capture, shade, and rewilding, is the living floor. What used to be a network of roads and open spaces gradually transformed into dense groves of native trees that absorb carbon while providing shade. Combined with direct air capture, DAC machines that filter large volumes of air and isolate and compress carbon dioxide, the two become the main carbon capture methods used to offset citizens' carbon. High-income elites are required to pay a percentage of their income to maintain tree zones and carbon capture units, making trees both ecological infrastructure and one of the city's most valuable resources. Access to these groves is heavily regulated to prevent damage. But restriction is not felt when it is framed as sacred. Religious leaders preach that planting trees is an act of repentance for the harm done to Mother Nature. They claim she withdrew from the world and left behind the heat as punishment. Shrines of shade are raised across the city, replacing the temples that used to celebrate light. They become small places of pause. Devout followers observe strict rituals marking the beginning and end of each time band. Families pray to specific sacred tree species. When a loved one passes, their body is given to the living floor, transforming into sustenance for new life, a tree. The moon and night sky take on renewed importance. On full moon nights, elites moon gaze and write poetry, praising light without heat. But not everyone follows in the same way. There are some who believe that Mother Nature's truest form is deep within the earth. They make their dwellings underground. They are the eternal Erebus. They move by touch and breath, by sound and scent, in abandoned metro stations that are their ashrams. Only on one occasion do they ascend to the outer world, during an eclipse. They stare at it until sight leaves them. These ascetics work together with 4 religious leaders, naturalists from a time before the world of heat, to guide devotees. There are also 4 government leaders that run the city: an urban planner, a climatologist, an agro-technician, and a systems engineer act as a council of 4 heads, forming the Umbra Imperium. Planners work with architects to design better infrastructure. Climatologists develop strategies to manage emissions. Agro-technicians develop efficient nutrition solutions. And the systems engineer controls AR systems. Together, they oversee carbon capturing, manage credit allocation, and monitor the city's emissions performance to maintain environmental discipline. They keep tight control of the population, as any uprising or slip in time scheduling could seriously upset the delicate balance and rationing of energy in the city.
They use control to create order, to reduce crime, to provide housing, to create rhythm, to make nutrition accessible, to cool down the city, to reduce emissions, and to make everything measurable. This city is the solution they came up with. Solution to a problem that doesn't look very different from our own. Heleon's response to these problems was a world governed by time. What will ours be?